Let's talk about rotary polishing, but specifically how to remove the holograms from the paint after using the rotary. This is the part that a lot of detailers get stuck on. This is where you see a black colored vehicle with all those holograms or buffer trails across the vehicle. Is because it wasn't refined and it was left as is. So this is something that if you're worried about the rotary, it's not that big of a deal. It's pretty simple to remove, and I'll show you how to do that, and then I'll give you a added tip at the end on how you can speed up the process. And remember, if you want to do this as a business, you can spend all the time being the best detailer that you can. You can go and get certificates and go be an authorized installer, but being a better detailer isn't going to help you get more customers or make more money or grow your business. That's going to be focused on the business side of detailing. So that's what I teach inside of Detailers Growth Academy, where I'll show you how to create your own website, how to optimize your Google business profile, how to do SEO on your website, how to price your services, how to make sure you're actually profitable, and everything else that comes with running a profitable business. So if you're interested to growing your business, click the link down below and join us in Detailers Growth Academy. If you're gonna use a rotary, what's gonna happen is you're gonna leave what's called holograms or buffer trails. Or one time, very recently, I read someone call it dragon tails. That's an absolute first I've heard about. So when you're gonna rotary it, you are gonna create holograms in the paintwork. And I'll show you what that looks like right now. The issue is, detailers or body shops, they just use the rotary on the paint, go into the polishing phase, and then call it done. And the issue with that is you need a half step in between the rotary to the polish in order to remove the holograms. It's the same thought process of doing a two-step correction where your first cutting phase is going to remove the swirls and the imperfections, but it's going to leave behind haze in the paint. Right, so if you know the most popular is if it's a dark colored vehicle, a black colored vehicle, you'll see a lot of haze in the paintwork, or it'll look almost grayish or whitish in the paintwork because of the haze, right? So then you follow that up with a polishing step to refine the hazing, not to remove the scratches, but to remove the hazing in order to get the gloss and clarity back out. So it's following that same method with the rotary, to where the rotary is to remove the imperfection, the swirl, the scratch, what have you. The next step is to refine the holograms out to then go to your polishing step. Now, depending on the paintwork or the rotary or what you're doing, sometimes you can get away with like for us, we always basically just do a two-step afterwards to ensure that the holograms are out. You can also do maybe like a half step where like maybe it's like a very medium cut, and then you go to your polish. We always just default to doing a cut, so we for sure remove the holograms. Now, keep in mind, the rotary is to remove the imperfections. The half step, the next step is just to refine the holograms out of the paintwork. So when we're gonna do our cutting step, we're cutting the holograms out. We're not going after imperfections. So when we go to our half step, we don't need to spend a lot of time cutting the paint to remove the imperfections. We're simply removing the holograms out of the paintwork. So we're not doing, so that's an important thing to note, because a lot of people think, oh, well, it's gonna take me so much more time to do a two-step because now I have to do a cutting phase. We're just cutting the holograms out. So instead of cycling and doing multiple passes, you just need one pass and the holograms are out. So it goes by pretty quickly. And I'll show you a trick that you can do to even speed up the process. So now I laid down the bead right here. I don't know if you can tell that. This is just an example. I'm not actually trying to like correct this car. This is just for as an example. So I laid down the bead right there, pick it up right here, and I'm gonna run the machine. So now the rotary section is done. Let's assume like, yes, I did the process. I, made sure that the swirls are out, and then boom, like, okay, I have removed the imperfections that I was going for, and now all I have left over is the refinement step now. So it's going to be a little difficult to look at this. Maybe I'll try to overlay some B-roll here. But now what you're going to see here are almost like some smear marks across the paint where I hit with the rotary. That's what you call your holograms or buffer trails, or to that one person, dragon tails. This is the part where you have to make sure you remove it, because if you continue with the process and you go to the polish, and then let's say you're going to do ceramic coating, so you prep the paint, you apply the ceramic coating, and you're using some light to check, and you're like, oh, the paint looks so fantastic. When you bring it out to the sun to inspect the paint, you're gonna see those rotary marks, and then you'd have to do the whole car over, because if you coated the whole vehicle and you didn't remove those holograms, you'd have to go back to cut the whole paint in order to make sure you remove those holograms. So again, it's not something crazy. It's literally just refinement. The same way on a two-step correction that you refine the haze out of the cut, we're simply refining the holograms out of the cutting step. That's it. So now how do you get those holograms out? It's going to be through a cutting step. Now, I would say just default to a cutting step that way, because after a while you might be able to get away with like a not as aggressive cut. But for now, I would just say default to that. That way you are for sure removing the holograms, and you're not having to overwork yourself. So for instance, like this is, and again, any cutting step will do, like whatever you do as a two-step, whatever your cutting step is, you can use that to remove the holograms. So for this one, this is a Lake Country blue pad. This is just one of the cutting pads that we have. Like, I'm just giving you an example that this is a cutting pad with a cutting compound. That's it. Whatever combo you're already using to do your cutting step in your paint correction, you can just go with that one. It's not this specific pad with this specific compound. It's whatever you're using to cut, you can use that to remove the holograms. So the big difference in terms of how you're gonna remove them is that, again, I wanna emphasize, we're not removing swirls and scratches and imperfections anymore. That's why we use the rotary. So we're good with that part. Now, maybe you might be able to remove a few more of these in the cutting step, because maybe there's like one little area that you didn't hit with the rotary. But again, that's why we're using the rotary, to give us that heavier cut to actually remove those imperfections. So now on the on this next step here is we're just removing the holograms, not imperfections. So we don't need to go and crosshatch this way, and crosshatch one more time. We don't need to do that, because removing the holograms is very easy, because those aren't defects in the sense of like they're swirls and scratches. We just have to refine it. So we're gonna do a light pass on this step in order to remove the holograms. And I'll show you normal speed, that way you can actually see like what it takes to actually remove them. You'll want to adjust this based on what you're working on and the panel and such, because like if we're on a curved panel, it'll probably be a little bit different in terms of the machine that you're using and if it bogs down and things. But as a whole, I'll just show you normal speed here. And that is literally it right there. It doesn't have to get any more complicated than that. That's why like you can actually move quite fast when you're doing the rotary, because you can work in such larger sections. Like with the rotary, I try to work as big of a section as I can. Like I'll make sure there's enough product that like I can hit this whole section in one go, so I'm not having to do multiple passes. And then when it comes to the DA step, I'll try to hit equally a large section here as well. That way I just move through the process. So now when we inspect the paintwork, the holograms are gone. But now, now we have to go into the last step, which is the polishing step. So now we're just going into our normal 2-step, because now we have to refine the cut we just did. So we did the hologram, we did the rotary, left holograms. We did the cut to refine the holograms, and we did. But now we have a haze that's left in the paintwork. So now we go into our polishing step to bring out that gloss and clarity. Now, I'm not gonna go into that part because now it's just a regular 2-step. You get a polishing pad, a polishing polish, and then you just polish it out. Very simple. So now something else that you can do to speed up the process is, again, this is gonna be dependent on what you're working on, what you're doing, and what all you're trying to do. But something else you can do is combine those 2 steps into one. So what I mean by that is, you know, let's say you're correcting whatever, right? It could be whatever. So you're gonna correct here as normal, right? You're gonna pick it up and you're gonna do the correction. Right, as an example, I'm not actually correcting anything. So now, instead of wiping this down and then getting your DA polisher and redoing the process, you can use your DA polisher with your cutting pad, with your compound, with a little bit of compound. You don't need much because you already have compound on the paint from the rotary that you used, and just work it as is. Like, go straight into the cut right here. So now just spread that around and then do your cut. And then you grab your towel, buff off, you inspect with your light or whatever you have to inspect your work, and then you're good like that. So there's different ways you can do to speed up the process. I do this a lot actually when I'm cutting paint, because you can just combine 2 into 1. And the main thing you want to keep it, you really want to emphasize, is that you're not cutting imperfections with that second step. You're just refining the hologram. There's a big difference. Like, you don't have to spin there and go super slow and up and down, side to side, side to side. That's not what we're doing. We just want to refine the holograms with the cutting and then just do a normal 2-step at that point. So that's going to end it right there. Hopefully I took you through the process and this gives you a good enough understanding of how to remove those holograms so your work comes out better and better. If you want to join us in that training in Detailer Growth Academy, it'll be linked down below, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one.